Headlines all over the internet keep pushing the same story. OnlyFans creator Bonnie Blue slept with over 1,000 men in 12 hours. The adult content industry is a tricky one to talk about. Some view platforms like OnlyFans as an empowering way for creators to take control of their own income, while others see any form of sex work as disgusting, depraving, subhuman behavior. As with most debates, the truth likely lies somewhere in between, but I think that most of us can agree upon the fact that this whole sexual revolution we're currently going through is reaching extremes that in many cases are doing more harm than good. So let's take a deeper dive into the adult content industry, examining the exploitation, illegal practices, and ethical concerns hidden beneath the surface, and question whether modern sex work truly lives up to its promise of female empowerment. In order to continue talking about this industry, I think we first have to differentiate between the professional adult film industry and the adult content creator industry, because those two things are very different. The professional adult film industry is undeniably a net negative on society as a whole. Many of the largest porn websites are controlled by the same parent company, MindGeek, which has now been rebranded as ALO. MindGeek has been at the center of some of the biggest controversies in the porn industry, with countless accusations of exploitation, non-consensual content, and unethical business practices. For years, the company has profited off of illegal and abusive material, including revenge porn, trafficking victims, and underage content that slipped through weak moderation systems. One of the biggest scandals came when MindGeek admitted to receiving money linked to trafficking and agreed to a 3-year monitoring period under a US federal agreement. A judge also recently allowed a class action lawsuit against them, where victims of child exploitation claim MindGeek knowingly profited from illegal content featuring minors. And on top of that, the women who are of age working for these companies have reported some pretty horrific stories of mistreatment and unfair pay as well. There's some absurdly insidious shit going on behind the scenes of just about every single adult content website because of this one company. Nothing about doing sex work for a monopoly is empowering, and it's clear that making adult content more accessible in this way for both workers and consumers has done significant harm. Now, this is where you can kind of start to see the positives of a platform like OnlyFans. Traditionally, all sex work, whether through porn, escorting, or other forms, has involved exploitative middlemen, such as pimps, adult film studios, or abusive agencies. OnlyFans and similar platforms cut out those intermediaries, allowing creators to set their own prices, control their image and boundaries, and keep a larger share of their earnings. But then there's the broader debate about how destigmatizing sex work impacts society and whether bodily autonomy should include the right to monetize one's body in any way one pleases. And I think this is where it gets a little complicated and where we should put the focus of our discussion. You know what shouldn't be complicated though? Getting enough protein every day to build muscle. And to help with that, I have today's sponsor, David. A lot of you guys have now found out how much I love weightlifting and running thanks to my recent body image crisis video. And that means I need to be getting at least 0.7 grams per pound of body weight if I want to build muscle and recover optimally. You know how hard that can be sometimes, just chugging protein shakes or eating a whole pound of chicken or beef. And then when you're trying to cut especially, it's super hard to stay in a caloric deficit while still hitting your protein targets. That is where David comes in. David is a protein bar with some of the most insane macros I've ever seen. 150 calories and 28 grams of protein, the highest protein to calorie ratio on the market that is 50% higher than any competitor. You must think with macros like that, it tastes like you're eating a piece of chalk, but the flavors and texture are surprisingly pretty good. Now, keep in mind it is a protein bar, so you've got to temper your expectations. The fudge brownie flavor isn't going to taste like a literal brownie, but it's still pretty smooth to eat and sweet enough in a way that doesn't taste super artificial. I personally enjoyed the blueberry pie and peanut butter chocolate chunk flavors the best. Overall, I think David is best for someone who's really trying to keep their calories down, who wants a quick, easy way to get in 28 grams of protein in a way that actually tastes pretty good. So if you want to grab yours before they sell out, you can click the first link in my description box, or you can go to davidprotein.com to find them. A common argument sex workers will use when advocating for bodily autonomy is that if people can use their bodies for physical labor, like construction, sports, acting, or modeling, then why should sexual labor be any different? Athletes are damaging their bodies for entertainment, models and influencers are profiting off their appearance, and actors are filming explicit scenes in mainstream movies, so why shouldn't OF girls be allowed to do the same? Me personally, I don't think we shouldn't allow people to do whatever they want with the body they inhabit. You should have full bodily autonomy. The problem I have are the consequences of normalizing having tons of casual sex or porn, especially to teenagers who are being encouraged to pursue sex work as this freeing, lucrative business that empowers you. In reality, that's not what the industry is like for the vast majority of creators, and in some cases, platforms like OnlyFans only give exploiters even more of an incentive to indoctrinate literal children into the adult industry before their brains are fully developed. The Bop House is a content creator house that I'm sure any gooner or goonette watching this video is probably familiar with. It's a group of OnlyFans creators, some as young as 19 or 20, living together in a massive mansion, collaborating on highly suggestive social media content designed to attract gooner fans willing to spend obscene amounts of money on their OnlyFans accounts. And this is giving a lot of young, impressionable teenagers the idea that the adult content industry is this easy, glamorous way to make a living. The most popular influencer from the house, 20-year-old Sophie Rain, made $43 million on OnlyFans in 2024, with a huge draw to her being due to the fact that she mentions being a virgin. That just goes to show what a weird infatuation some of y'all have with virgins, and I guess I really shouldn't kink shame if we can even call that a kink, but anyways, the reality for the vast majority of OnlyFans creators is far less appealing. There are over 4 million OnlyFans creators as of 2023, and only 1% of those are earning at least $10,000 per month. The real average earnings for an OnlyFans creator? $150 to $180 a month. Literal pennies. This creates a dangerous illusion that young women and some men are being empowered to take upon an entrepreneurial career selling their bodies while actually being financially exploited. It's taking advantage of young people who are desperate for money, who see this golden opportunity to get rich, even though they would much rather not be making adult content, and then they are putting in all this work for nothing. On top of that, if your content gets discovered, you might experience deep regret and want to leave the industry, only to find yourself trapped, unable to transition into mainstream careers due to your past. Now, of course, it absolutely is on the creator to take accountability for the consequences of their actions. If you didn't realize how hard it would be, how likely it would be that you would be making pennies, and how it might affect your ability to get jobs in the future, that is on you. But that same sort of argument doesn't really apply when we're talking about, let's say, 18 or 19-year-olds who are still essentially children who are influenced by the success of young, wealthy OnlyFans creators on social media. And this is one of the big issues I have with making hypersexuality so normalized. It creates a narrative that suggests it's acceptable for teenagers and young adults who may not yet fully understand themselves or the consequences of their actions to start uploading naked pictures or videos of themselves, treating sex like a commodity and purely transactional. In my opinion, this diminishes the value of human relationships overall, which has far-reaching societal consequences, affecting everything from platonic to romantic connections. But it gets even worse when platforms like OnlyFans become so normalized that they end up fueling the very issue they were supposed to help dismantle, drawing actual minors into explicit content. Recently, the Bop House was involved in a big scandal involving a 17-year-old. They were letting this 17-year-old minor collaborate on content with the people in the Bop House. On the surface, it feels like a group of barely legal teenagers recruiting a minor for a future in the adult content industry. But that's not the disturbing part. The most disturbing part is that it is her mother who is pulling the strings behind the scenes, exploiting her underage daughter's body on social media for profit. This unnamed minor's mother is the one who manages the OnlyFans-like accounts. And I say OnlyFans-like because you're not actually allowed to be a creator on OnlyFans until you're 18, where her daughter posts bikini pictures.
What do you get with these subscriptions? You get pictures of in bikinis and different outfits that are extremely sexually suggestive. I can't show you them on TikTok because I'm pretty sure it's illegal. There's not only the bikini photos in different outfits, there's Playboy imagery in the background.
And that same mother was sued in 2022 by 11 YouTubers who alleged she abused them emotionally, physically, and sexually for YouTube content.
100% think that Tiffany exploited our children for monetary gain.
You could argue that this is just one sick, twisted mother who deserves to be in prison, who would have found a way to make this happen regardless of whether these online spaces existed, and you'd probably be right. But the most relevant part is that the normalization of kids being promiscuous online was essentially the gateway for her to traffic her own child, selling her body online while she was still a minor. The fact that we see content like this as just another piece of social media content, the fact that we have become so desensitized to seeing 18-year-old women on the internet half naked is so weird. And it gets even weirder when a lot of content specifically targets teenage men to get them addicted to porn and spend their money on OnlyFans creators. Bonnie Blue, the woman I mentioned at the start of the video, has made numerous short-form videos of her basically hunting down, quote, barely legal teens to create content with.
Okay, so I've actually realised that the younger they are, like when they've just turned 18, they're the ones with the biggest loads.
I want to sleep with 130 barely legal 18-year-olds.
I can't see it on the menu, but where do I get the 5 guys from? The 5 guys. I didn't know if it was like a special room or you can take me out back.
No, I don't think that's happening.
It's pretty obvious to me that the reason she does this is to create a fantasy that teenage men, the demographic most susceptible to being manipulated into spending money on internet girls, have some chance at sleeping with her, and subscribing to her OnlyFans content fuels that fantasy or almost deludes you into thinking you have a chance with her. I'm just trying to imagine the absolute outrage that would happen all over the internet if a guy in his mid-20s was going around targeting teenage women trying to sleep with them. Is that a double standard we really want to keep? Like, does it really make it okay just because Bonnie Blue is a woman, because sexualizing women on the internet is so normalized, and because the men that she is trying to sleep with can technically consent to this? Another place where this sort of thing goes down that doesn't seem to be getting enough attention is the Snapchat Discover page. Now listen, the only reason I have this app downloaded is because we have a group chat with my high school friends, and this is the only way I can contact them on a regular basis, so don't judge me. If you haven't been on Snapchat in a while, they have a Discover page which kind of acts like Instagram's Explore page, but instead it's a bunch of short snaps you can flip through that feature creators or companies telling stories. And if you go there, just about every single Discover block is related to a corn star. What really goes on behind their friendship? Lisa Ann on her friendships with men. She spilled the truth about him, and it's just Johnny Sins. My parents kicked me out. That's another OnlyFans creator. She want to film with him next. That's another corn star. Just under 20% of Snapchat users are between the ages of 13 and 17, and yet they've flooded the Discover feeds with adult film stars on an app that is designed and used by children. Is this really the kind of destigmatization we want, allowing big corporations to expose children who don't yet have the brain capacity to understand the consequences of these addictions to adult film stars in legally ambiguous ways? All of which could contribute to a generation of men growing up to objectify women, seeing them through a purely sexual lens rather than learning how to respect and properly engage with them. To me, it's clear a lot of this shit has gone too far, and while it is crucial to support the autonomy of sex workers, we can't ignore the darker realities of this industry that have been spawning recently. Yes, OnlyFans has empowered some creators to live on their own terms, but it brings about difficult questions about mental health and the lasting effects this is going to have on society. And perhaps most telling of all is what the widespread attraction of creating and consuming this type of content tells us about the deeper issues going on within society. A lot of what's left out of discussions from creators who make content about the damaging normalization of the sex industry is how much men play a part in this. For the men who berate and belittle women for participating in this industry, you do realize that the only reason they can make a living doing this is because of men, right? Very lost men who do not realize they aren't even speaking to the actual OnlyFans creators when they subscribe to them, but rather what is most likely their manager, are spending absurd amounts of money encouraging women to pursue this line of work. So we as men need to hold other men accountable too. In terms of what's worse though, I would say that OnlyFans creators targeting and taking advantage of specifically young men who are naive and not old enough to understand the consequences of their actions does call for more accountability than the young men that don't realize what getting into this is going to do to them. But you can't only be bad at creators when there's tons of male adults that are old enough to realize what they're doing, which is spending crazy amounts of money on women they'll never meet. At that point, you have to ask yourself, what is it about our society that drives women to pursue this career or makes them feel like they have no other option? And what leaves men so starved for attention that they're willing to drain their finances for an OnlyFans creator they'll never even meet? Because those are the questions that hold the real answer as to why this even exists at the scale it does in the first place. The glorification of influencers, hookup culture, the growing wealth disparity gap, the inability to find a stable, well-paying job out of college, the housing market, so many aspects of modern society influence people to turn to adult content out of survival and desperation. This creates a vicious cycle, where the hardships young people face lead to depression and loneliness, which then drive them towards creating or consuming adult content. Over time, this can spiral into addiction, intensifying their depression and anxiety. As their mental health deteriorates, they become even less equipped to tackle the very struggles that pushed them towards this behavior in the first place. And this cycle reinforces larger systemic issues like wealth disparity, unemployment, lack of education, community, and purpose, all of which contribute to the normalization of hypersexuality and the growing loneliness among young people. We need better resources for mental health, clearer regulations, and a society that respects bodily autonomy without encouraging harmful extremes. We need to raise children to be great parents and role models so they don't become the kind of parents who don't know how to monitor their children's internet usage, or worse, the ones who don't care at all about what their child is watching and how it's influencing them. Because a lack of proper parenting plays a huge role in this too. We also need to keep raising awareness about the potential dangers of entering the adult content industry at an early age and the addictions and mental health issues that could emerge later on. Like I said, this shit has gone too far and we need to speak up about it, continuously critiquing the extremes of this industry. Talked about hookup culture in a past video in more detail and how that affected my life and the way I view women. You might enjoy it if you enjoyed this video. You can click on it right here to watch it. That's all for this video. Share it around if you enjoyed, if you agree, if you don't agree, let me know in the comments. Love to hear your opinions, and goodbye.